Welcome to the Masterful Man podcast. This is the show for men who want to explore and embody the principles, practices, and personal power that allow them to thrive amidst today's chaotic world and lead a meaningful life.
All right. Here we are back again for another masterful episode of the world's best podcast of all time. 4 episodes in. Can't beat it. Get out of here, Tim Ferriss. Get out of here. Who else got a big podcast?
Yeah.
Anyways, just kidding.
Ferriss has like 4,000 episodes or something.
We wouldn't be here without Tim Ferriss for sure.
Yeah.
But super stoked to be here with you guys. This is becoming just more and more fun, and I look forward to it more and more each week. And I think we're getting in a really cool groove with things. And the last 2 episodes, we kind of started to establish some groundwork and some foundational stuff for people to get how we approach the world, our lives, these big premises of mastery and masculinity. And we felt called today to dive into just taking things a little more ground level, a little bit more practical and tactical, as we always like to do. And last week we talked about what is mastery, and I loved what we got into there. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, definitely go maybe pause this one and go get that one first, so you kind of have the definition on board, because we're not going to spend too much time on that. And then today we're going to be talking about what we actually do, the 3 of us specifically. What are our little tips and tricks, our favorite little hacks or practices, or ways that we've designed our life and our perspective so we're the most masterful versions of ourselves as we possibly can be. So without further ado, we're going to have Mr. Smith start us off, and I'm excited to hear what both you guys get to say about this. So take it away, Adam.
Yeah, of course. The idea is like, how do we cultivate all of this stuff that we talked about in the last couple episodes? So for me, the main piece that I started off with myself, and I start off with a lot of my clients, is sleep. And I feel like that's probably a main tenet for the 3 of us, is making sure that you have enough sleep. If you remember back and you just listened to that last episode, like Nathaniel said, my idea of mastery is being able to constantly pursue my own potential. And you can't do that if you're tired. And so like for me, that's the foundation of being able to cultivate mastery at all, is to make sure that you have enough energy, make sure that you have the capacity, make sure that you know what and how to get yourself into a state that allows you to pursue those things over and over and over again. So for me, the first thing is always sleep. The second thing for me...
Wait, let me get you right there. Okay. What are 1, 2, or what are the absolute musts that make your sleep work really well?
He beat me to it, because he said we're on tactical.
Yeah.
So you got to get sleep. How have you what have you literally done to make your sleep better? Measure it.
So the main
I say measure because I know you measure it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the main thing is actually measuring it. I normally wear something called a Whoop. There's also an Oura ring out there. And for me, that was huge, because I thought I was getting great sleep. And then I realized that time in bed does not actually equal time sleeping, which is like, I feel like people, when you ask them like, oh, well, what time do you go to bed? And it's like, oh, I go to bed at 10:30. It's like, okay, great. Well, what time do you fall asleep? Because most of the people out there are probably in bed at a decent time, but then they are on their iPads or on their phones, or like sitting there scrolling, and then it's not for another hour or so that they're actually falling asleep. So for me, a tactical thing was actually tracking how much sleep I was getting. And then it's also knowing how much sleep you actually need. So when I first started this process, I went about probably like a week and a half without setting an alarm for myself, just to see what the actual amount of sleep my body needed for the amount of output that I put out during the day. So it's like working out every day, plus being on calls, plus doing all this. How much sleep do I actually need? science says that us as men need at least 7.5 to 8 hours. For women, if any women listening to this, you're apparently supposed to have about an hour or an hour and a half more sleep than us, which is cool. Get your beauty sleep, queens. Right? Like, um, and so that was the other piece, was like actually finding out how much sleep I actually needed. And then I always work backwards. So in order to get enough things done during the day, I knew I need to get up at a certain time. And so what time do I need to go to sleep? 7.5 hours, at least 7.5 hours prior to that. I try to be asleep right now um, by 10 o'clock so that I can get up around 6-ish
I love that
and get my day
distinction too,
started.
the time for when you want to be asleep versus the in bed, or even worse, getting ready for bedtime
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because that could be an hour from getting ready to then being in bed and then another.
Yeah. Because yeah, the getting ready, I think, is what throws a lot of people off. I want to be sleeping for 7.5 to 8 hours. And recently I haven't um I've gone back to no alarm just to give myself the amount of rest necessary for me to execute throughout the day.
See, look how precise that answer was. You gave a lot of precision there. You said, let's get tactical, and you did, which I appreciate. Like that, again, you made it clear. Time to be asleep, working backwards from that, measuring my sleep with what is it called again?
The whoop.
So
The
yeah,
Whoop.
I have a Whoop, but you can do the Aura Ring too. I think Nathaniel has the
Yeah,
has used the Aura Ring.
Yep.
that is excellence,
Yep.
right? Consistently pursuing excellence. Was that what you said?
Well, my own potential, but yeah,
Your own
excellent.
potential,
I would
right?
put excellent. I would. My potential is excellence, right?
Yeah,
Like I want it to be up there for sure.
yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that. That I need to hear it as you're talking. I'm like, oh my god, I am not that precise with my sleep, and perhaps I should be. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all depend again, it's the whole idea of it's self mastery. In general, we don't want you going to bed at midnight, right? And then staying and then sleeping until, because then your circadian rhythm's going to be all funky and everything like that. So, but it's like if you can go to bed at 11:30 and wake up and feel really good and feel really uh, productive and move your life forward in the way that you want it to move it forward, and you don't have any gripes about how fast you're growing your business or um,
Mm,
how well you're recovering from your workouts or anything like that. Like if you have no gripes whatsoever and you feel
yeah.
like you're performing at the level that you want to perform, yeah, you don't have to have a strict bedtime schedule. For me, with my concussions and ADHD and all, like susceptible to focus issues and stuff like that, I have to have enough sleep so that I have enough willpower to to adhere to the schedule that I have laid out for myself. I pretty much schedule out every half hour ish during the day so that I can get everything done that I need to do time blocking wise, which I guess would be another one of my tenets for mastery is mastering your time, right? If you don't master your energy and you don't master your time, then there's no way you're going to move anything forward. um, but I can't master my time if I don't have enough energy to do that. So sleeping enough so that I can adhere and have enough willpower to pull myself from away from my phone or away from another conversation or away from another task so that I can do the things that I want to do to move everything that I want to move forward. Um, those are probably my big two. And I know I'm sure Nathaniel's going to talk about movement and stuff like that, but um, time management and then the energy management are my two top, and sleeping and actually time blocking out your time are the top two ways I do that.
Right. What give a little, someone who's never time blocked before, what's a great way for them to just even kind of try it out, or like see, maybe it's like an audit of your time. I know like Sam Ovens has that little like daily audit thing. What would you recommend for someone to go try that?
Yeah, so I think it's the the start of it is you being real with how much time things actually take you. So really, if you're going to start time blocking, it's great to obviously put an hour, say you're wanting to do content creation or something like that. You're wanting to be a content creator, coach online or something. Throw an hour up there to do content creation, but actually don't just like throw it up there. And if you did it, like be happy. And if you didn't do it, be sad. Like, did you really put the focus time into it? And did it take you 15 minutes more, 15 minutes less? Be really, really, again, precise about what is actually happening in that time.
Yeah.
So time blocking essentially is making sure that you have time in your calendar, which if it's not on your calendar, it's technically not real. I think I probably learned that phrase from you, Nathaniel. And I have it set up so that there's different colors for different tasks and stuff like that. But really, it's just saying from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I'm going to do this task.
Yeah.
And then checking to see, did it take me that much time or not? Writing that down and then reevaluating the next day or next week
Yeah.
of how long you think that's going to take.
Especially if not too, right? Because you're like, oh, the hour's up. I'm like not even halfway done with this thing. What happened? And you're like, oh shit, I spent 20 minutes out of this hour, like doing research on the thing, you know, like getting lost and just checking something out or whatever. And
Right.
if you don't start to like catch that or realize that that's the thing that's eating up your time, you can't change it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I would love to wrap that up in a cool bow from the Sam Ovens thing I had mentioned, which is a really simple way to do this. Is you just take a normal day of yours from the moment you wake up, have a timer set to go off every 30 minutes, and at the 30 minutes write down what you're doing, and that's it. And then you realize what your normal maybe like work day is full of 3.5 hours of absolute BS that could totally be changed.
Right.
And so many people complain about not having enough time or all these types of things, and we lose so much time to just quick little moments that we don't really track, right? So
You know,
the
you know what?
measuring is huge.
It is. I'm not a measurer, and I doubt I will be. But to Adam's previous point, which I really appreciated him saying, was, well, what is your goal anyway? What's the experience you want to have of growth? If what's working for you is working for you, and you're happy at the pace you're going, we're not sitting here as masterful men going, you need to be more precise in timekeeping.
Yeah.
But that is what works for Adam. Adam is telling us he needs to do that.
Yeah.
And I realize as you tell us about it, it works because you're being honest. You're being honest with yourself, and you're honest about how things actually take, as you put it. How long is this actually taking? I'm not saying something that takes 30 minutes takes 10 because I'm so blind to my ego and pride that I'm sabotaging myself.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Yeah.
But your precision works because you're giving yourself the correct data.
Yeah.
And that I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate you noticing that, because it is precise, because it has to be for me. Because I know I can lose an hour and a half scrolling easily, even with as quote unquote masterful as I am. I can do that if I don't have that time set aside for something else. So to me, like, that has to happen in order for me to move the things forward that I want to move forward. So I appreciate, I appreciate you,
Yeah.
you
That's what
noticing
has
that.
to happen for you, and
Yeah.
probably a lot of listeners. If I was a listener and I heard you right now and I was like, damn, I don't know if I need to be that precise or not, then you should probably give it a shot
Yeah.
and see what the experience is like for yourself.
Like,
Like,
and if
do
you
it.
really don't think you need it, would be interesting to give it a shot too.
Yes.
Just, I think I love that. The willingness to be curious is a great expression of mastery.
Yeah.
And by the way, to the listeners out there who heard me just say, I'm not a measurer. I was an officer in the Navy. I've played this precision game, and I know I don't really want to do that too much anymore.
Yeah.
You retired all your.
No. I needed to bring a lot of that back into my life for sure. But yeah.
And I will say, like, Fridays,
Yeah.
I don't normally have any time blocked there. right? So it's like I give myself what my brain, quote unquote, would naturally need, which is like the ability to be curious and stillness and all of that. But every other day is mostly time blocked out so that I can get things done because I know where I want my life to be vision wise, and it's not there right now, so I got to keep working at it.
Yeah. That
Solid.
that is super
Time,
solid.
energy, measurement, precision, and then like the willingness to experiment to find out what your particular setup is going to be, you know.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, I think having some data is, you could be like, oh, I tried going to bed earlier for a month, but if you never like wrote down how or tracked like how your days went, you can't really, you might not be able to really
Yeah.
know what's going on. So
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. So what's your cultivation pieces, Fabi?
Well, as Nathaniel said, if you didn't listen to episode 3 first, you should have. Uh, Real quick though, my 4 steps to mastery I talked there were experience your experience, 4 steps to mastery. I experience my experience. I experience my experience and can communicate it so that others understand. Um, I am responsible for everything, and I have what I have. And I have what I has been coming up a lot for me recently. Uh, I'll come back to that though. You know, they starting with step 1, experience my experience. This is the kind of thing that I've read. I think lots of us read, and getting into spirituality, it comes up in all sorts of books about being present, basically, um, and then be present with what's happening. What am I feeling in my body? What are the emotions I'm having? What am I really feeling? Being honest, going back to honesty, being honest with myself about what I'm actually feeling. But that's, I
Yeah.
think, probably at first. Go ahead. Yeah,
Well, I was just going to say, tactically, what does that look like?
exactly. Exactly what I was going to say. Yes, at first I did what I think a lot of spiritual seekers do, and I would call myself a spiritual seeker even now and forever, I hope. Uh, just kind of like sit down and meditate and be like, all right, I'm here. What am I feeling? Like, how do I feel my feelings harder? Like, how do I experience my experience harder? And that really doesn't work. What I needed to do and what I did was clean up my life, just close loops in my life, heal trauma. This is where the path to healing is a path to getting on to the path to mastery for me. And I think a lot of people in the healing wellness world are doing healing and wellness perhaps in and of itself just as an end game. Like I practice healing all the time. Uh and I was doing that, and then I realized in healing that I just kind of was more present. And then the experience my experience thing that I'd also been over the years of spiritual study and being a speaker come across all of a sudden made sense. There was a new awareness about it. So tactically, I'm doing the things that keep my nervous system calm.
Hmm.
And because I have wrestled with trauma in my life, and a lot of general anxiety is the official diagnosis I've gotten before. And with that, a lot of thoughts of catastrophizing and worst case scenarios. So my path tactically was to also measure that. Actually, it is fun to talk about this on the podcast kind of live because it just that naturally comes out in new ways, which I think is important. It's important to reframe, recontextualize for ourselves. So even doing this podcast, I do that for myself. I realize I did measure. I measured by journaling, and journaling. Everyone that knows me know I start. You know, you guys met me. I was a journaling guy more or less, and now broadening out to life coaching, and even figuring out more what my essence is as a coach as time goes on and the kind of people I want to work with. But it's because I measured in a journal. I have a record with a timestamp that can tell you what my mood was on a certain day, any given time during a day, the thoughts I was having, the things I was practicing. And then when I reflect on my journal, and people often ask me, do you reread your journals? Absolutely, I do. I even highlight them as I go along and be like, I'm going to want to come back to this. Like this thing, meaning how I'm feeling. If I write down something that seems very concise and honest to myself about how I'm feeling, there's that honesty again, right? I'm giving myself good data. I can go back and read it 1 week, 1 month, 1 year later and go, damn, I was really stressing out about that thing that means nothing to me anymore.
I love that feeling.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the best feeling in the world. And to some degree, maybe I chase that feeling too much, but it's important. It's important to keep caught up with ourselves. One thing journaling does, you can catch up with yourself and get what's going on and see common threads in your life. Because then in the moment when I catch myself going dark with a thought or going a worst case scenario in my head, I've cultivated enough self-awareness to stop and go, hold on. Is this what's even happening right now? Is this made up worst case scenario in my head at really going to happen? And usually, almost always, it's like, no. So breathe and calm down. Look at what's actually happening now. What am I up to?
Yeah.
So,
Wait,
yes.
question about that, because I think I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea that, well, I don't carry my journal around with me. I don't
Yeah.
have it now. I don't like, for you, do you create a container around journaling? Do you have a little notebook or pads of paper, something like that, that you carry around with yourself to like, okay, I was angry because of this, blah, blah, blah. So what is that process?
No, great question. Again, more nuts and bolts tactical for sure. For years, and up until very recently, did carry my journal around almost always, all the time. And a big one too. Like, I actually have it right here, hardback, 360 pages.
Damn.
And it's,
Don't get
because,
mugged with that thing around.
and then I have a fountain pen and journal. So actually, this is worth mentioning. The journal is beautiful. It's gold leaf and it lies flat, high quality paper that really soaks in. Is one of my fountain pens, so that the visceral experience of writing with a fountain pen on my page feels good. And I've done it so much that I can actually sit down and just start writing gibberish, and it just literally feels good, like self-soothing, like petting myself, like writing with uh with a fountain pen is this just like ASMR experience that just calms me down. And we always say we got this, so definitely have taken my fair share of voice notes when I'm caught without it. And so at first when I journaled, there were days I'd journal for 2-3 hours. I don't think people need to do that. I'm not necessarily recommending. That's a lot of that was driven by just reading and taking notes and reading and taking notes, but just enough to capture a thought. Now it's more powerful for me to write one sentence like, oh, my girlfriend's daughter, who I'm getting closer to, my girlfriend's kids, like, she said this to me today and I didn't take it personally. And just a little context, I'm dating someone as a 10 and 8 and a 4-year-old. And I don't have my own kids, around kids. It's been amazing. And I notice like my attachment styles are triggered by kids. And I'm like, oh shit, this 4-year-old is like, this is a 4-year-old. Wait, I'm the adult here. Like I've had that experience. So I take a little voice note. I think that one was a voice note, like, hey, this happened with, Galit this morning, and it's all good. Like, and then can look back at it later in the day, and it's reinforced. And that's something I may look back at a year, 10 years from now and go, wow, remember when I was just starting this? And now I know not to, it's just another lesson in not taking things personally. So
Yeah.
tactically, I am carrying a pen and paper on with me almost all the time until recently, and voice notes when I'm without it, and just capture the thought. It doesn't have to be this long, flowery speech to myself, which I've done in the past as well, being romantic. Like, that's it.
Great. Love it. Yeah, I used to
Uh,
carry around something called a field notes. It's like a little I think it's like a 4x3 little notebook that I used to just carry around in my back pocket and jot stuff down.
So
I thought it
so
was
the
so
heat
cool. In like sixth grade, I had a little one, just instead of a wallet, you just got your little notes, and or I'm just writing down like the girls I have crushes on or something. I don't even
that
remember
is
what I was
funny.
writing there, but I remember
That is
I had
funny.
one, and I thought it was so cool. Almost put it on, almost got a chain like for the wallet. I like thought about that, but I wasn't
A
that
chain
cool.
for the notebook?
Yeah,
Oh, wow. You still might have to
yeah,
do that one. That
yeah.
still might be worth doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yours might pull your pants
That's on
down though,
brand for
Fabi.
you. Yeah, that's right. Just dragging it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's kind of clock some of these.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously journaling is one of your absolute kind of fundamentals. It comes back to a form of measure. It's another form of measurement.
It is
Another
actually,
form
yes.
of self-honesty.
Yep.
I think that's huge. I
Yeah.
think that like even just that one, like how many people and men specifically can go days, weeks, months, years without literally like having a good conversation with themselves.
Yeah.
Not and good, not as in like good or bad, but like effective or like a meaningful one or a like, really tangible one. So in
Effective,
fact,
effective is the right word.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
people really struggle with journaling. People are like, I don't know what to write down on the page because it's gonna be there. It's just gonna be in a physical form. And if you go back and read it, it's like, oh God, that is what I felt in that moment. I can't delude myself. I can't lie to myself. Like that's a fact. I mean, even Adam with sleep, like someone would eventually go, if they have enough humility, which is required for all this stuff. Oh my God, this thing that I keep telling myself I can do in 20 minutes is actually taking me 40 minutes. Well, are you going to be honest and shift the baseline or not?
Yeah.
yeah,
Are you going to be honest with yourself or not?
yeah.
I think at some point we should do a like question and answer about journaling because I do think it's something that a lot of guys, generally girls, grow up having a diary, or at least for a long time. I don't, maybe TikTok is their diary now for Gen Z or something like that. But I would love to at some point dive into like more deeper into the journaling style that
Yeah.
you do because I think it's really important to note um, that it's
Let
a
me give
little bit
you
different than
let me give you a teaser. It's what Marcus Aurelius did. Because
Okay.
everyone loves Marcus Aurelius right now. He's very fashionable because Stoicism and studying the Roman Empire is fashionable. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but what I mean is he had a literal self-help book. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a journal by a man just reinforcing concepts to himself over and over and over again. It's like, oh,
love it.
this is what's happening. Oh no, this is actually how it looks. New, giving himself new metaphors, new perspective all the time. All right.
Yeah, great. I mean,
There's a
yeah,
whole new episode
all of
coming
the
up at some point.
yeah, when we were
Yeah.
prepping for this show, we were talking about how this like cultivating mastery and all this stuff, we could do probably like a 3 or 4 hour episode, hour long episode on it. So we'll we'll give you just a little bit of teasers and obviously go deeper into it. Mr. Soles, what about you? I mean, you've been doing
Speaking
this for a
of
long
3 to
time.
4 hours,
Yeah,
here we
yeah.
go.
We're making him go
Uh,
last because he has a time commitment and
yeah,
Oh, I'm
no, it's
sorry,
good.
man.
he'll
That's right.
It's
Should
he'll
have
good.
left
No,
you
shorten
no,
some
he'll
more
shorten
time.
it.
it's perfect. It's perfect. And I
Okay.
think
Thank you. I appreciate
I've
that.
actually given these spiels so much that they could potentially be a bit shorter than my typical rant or so. So I define mastery as intention aligned action. So it's very important that there's two, that's how you're behaving and why you're behaving that way. And that gets kind of interesting because a lot of people, the trickiest part for most people is the intention part. Most people aren't even themselves to have an intention, right? When you're just like, oh, I just want to make a bunch of money. Like, that's not you. That's like some impulse. That's not you, So that's like already first and foremost, people need to be in a position where they can make an actual genuine choice about where they want to end up, how they want things to go. And that often takes a bit of space or a little pattern interrupt from like the stuff we get caught up in. I think that's super important. So in order to have that level of intention and have that type of action, I've narrowed mastery down to these three basically things that I like, three things to take care of. There's a lot of ways to take care of them. And simply put, those three things are capacity, connection, and coherence, or clarity is a kind of a simpler word. Capacity, connection, clarity. You literally have to have all three in order to not be actively sabotaging yourself. And I define self-sabotage simply as doing things you know you shouldn't be doing and not doing things you know you should be doing. So if you're doing that in any way, shape, or form, it's called self-sabotage. And the only reason you're doing it is because one of those three C's is not like that tank isn't full enough, right? Because you could be really connected to an idea and have a lot of energy for it, a lot of capacity, but not be clear on what it is exactly or what to go. So you need the clarity part. You could be really clear on what it is and have lots of energy for it. But if there's something in the way of you getting connected to it, like some self-doubt or something in your environment or a relationship, etc., right? You could be really connected to this thing. You could be so clear on exactly every little step. And if you don't have energy, you literally can't do it. So all three of those things have to be dialed in. And my favorite way to take care of those things is automatically, proactively, and with as much leverage as possible. So I want to highlight the word leverage for this kind of cultivation piece. It's the smartest way to approach cultivation, right? Like, why do something unnecessarily or waste effort or waste energy when necessary? So like the sleep, like Adam was saying, I call them the does, right? The sleep, don't eat dumb shit, you know, and that's it for nutrition. Don't worry about what to eat. Just stop eating stuff you know isn't real food or good food. And that pretty much covers it for most people. You know, spend quality time in nature, spend quality time outside, spend quality time with people that are good people to be around, all that obvious stuff. And just that obvious stuff, if you do a self-audit, most people are skimping horrendously, right? So I always call it the does, because like, duh, I should get some good sleep. And it's like, yeah, but do you? Duh, I shouldn't eat stupid shit. Yeah, but do you? Right? Duh, I should spend quality time with quality people. Yeah, but do you? And it's like that, again, the self-honesty, really measuring that is huge. So people paying attention to leverage is massive. One of my favorite ways to do that specifically is acknowledging that the only thing I can master is 24-hour cycle. That's all there is. And it keeps happening over and over and over again. I'm going to have some sort of waking up experience, some sort of getting out of bed experience, some sort of using the restroom experience, eating food, engaging with the outside, engaging with my work, engaging with my partner. There's only about a dozen things that happen every day, and they're the same things categorically. And for a lot of people, it's the exact same activity even. So to acknowledge that that's the only thing you actually have to get good at. Breaking that down even more. I brush my teeth 2 times a day, sometimes more if I ate something funny, whatever, but 2 times a day, every single day. And I stack with that the best posture and the best breathing of my day too. Because if I'm going to do that anyways, might as well like add in as much leverage as possible. And now, brushing my teeth experience has now over the years, it's become almost like a journaling, because I'm like, I'm standing in front of myself in the mirror. How am I breathing? And then sometimes I'm like, oh, why don't I want to stand as tall as I normally do? Like, oh, why does it feel harder to breathe right now? It's like becomes a daily integrative experience of something that most people probably do just staring at their phones or something. I don't know what other people do, but I'm sure a lot of people do not optimize their your sort of defaults, right? So you're gonna ideally eat food every day to some degree, whether you're making it, which is pretty damn ideal. So that's already a point of leverage, like being responsible for what you're putting in your body. But I love using like making meals throughout the day as a form of a break and regulating myself throughout the day, right? Some people treat it like a big burden or it's in the way, and that might be part that, people have different strokes for different folks, but that's one of the things that I love to use.
Well, that's also
So
because they don't have it in their schedule. So they just
true,
they try to fit it in between meetings or something crazy.
Yeah, well, no, I do that too, actually. I don't actually have it scheduled. I just eat when I'm hungry. But it's more that I've had so much fun experimenting and knowing myself that I know what I like to eat is so simple enough, and how to make it and make it really well. It's like I'm always 15 minutes away from just like having the meal of my life,
Yeah.
which is like a ribeye. Not that hard. It takes 15 minutes to cook ribeye. You're good to go. So leverage is a big one. Making sure you're getting the most out of the things that you can't get away from is another way to put that. right? So you got to sleep every night. Get obsessed with getting good at it, and it's massive. You're going to eat food every day. You're going to relate to people every day. How do you feel? Did the people in your life, on a default sense, like the ones you typically see, do you feel more energetically rich after you're with them, or do you feel energetically drained? Are you really paying attention to that? And I think I mean, this is great. I'm already feeling myself like coming. That's the bulk of it. So I can like start to open up some more cans, or if you guys have any prompts, but the leverage piece is key. And then just win the day, own the day, right? That's Aubrey Marcus's book. That's actually a great book for this premise. It's like maximizing your normal day, basically. And most people start to think of mastery, the master at the top of the mountain with all the skills and all the stats all the way up. And guess what? He literally only has that because he's done it longer than you and more consistently and in a smarter, more leveraged, effective way over time, right? So people are like striving for a certain ideal when even the master is the master because he loves waking up and then brushing his teeth and just doing the thing he's got to do, chop wood, carry water, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's my approach.
I'll give you a prompt or a question, maybe because what occurs to me now that all is gone is we've each experimented on ourselves a lot, and I think that is something I would want our listeners and people to understand. But I would want our personal clients, the men in the group, like, guys, we didn't get it the first time. Like, I don't know how many times Adam tried to figure out how to measure his sleep properly. I mean, I've experimented with journaling. Sometimes I've just written mantras for 2 months. Sometimes I've tried keeping a diary. Sometimes I've given myself time and space to experiment. Obviously, I hear you. I know you have, Nathaniel, and you alluded to it. Is there anything that you really felt you had to experiment with a lot, or something you think you've experimented enough and really refined the heck out of, or maybe something that you experimented with and didn't keep?
Sure. Oh, that's a great question. The experiment hat is definitely always on. I think that's crucial, where it's like,
good. I like
there's
that.
no such thing as settled science.
Yeah, I like that.
Just that's a whole other can of worms, right? But it's like, that's not, that's the whole point. It's like the moment it feels settled is a great time to run another experiment and like see what else, and how much more clear and how much more articulated and how much more can we get out of it, right? So that's
Great
huge.
answer.
Like never let that hat go off. And dude, I've experimented with everything. I mean, my first thing I think was the first thing I experimented with was actually just being disagreeable. Like my whole childhood, being rebellious, being like, I didn't want to do homework. I didn't want to graduate high school. So I had to like initiate myself into that experiment, which means, well, what are you going to fucking do instead? Right. And it's like willing to take certain risks on myself based on my own values. Right. Someone who really loves hiking, being outdoor, rock climbing, being in nature. Have you truly experimented with how maximized that is? Like, you don't know, you might be 10 times happier and 10 times more productive and 10 times more, just balanced in your life by actually like going a little harder on things that you really do love. Right. Someone's like, oh, I love rock climbing, so I go once a week. It's in my schedule. And then it's like, okay, but what if you went 3 times a week? You might actually everything might be better. So it's like, I think it's so much of the best parts of mastery is realizing the stuff you're supposed to do does actually feel good. But also because, especially for a man, when you're healthy and your testosterone levels are healthy, doing stuff that doesn't feel good feels good. Like using effort and will and pushing through and challenging yourself actually is enjoyable too. So that should be like a marker for people to pay attention to, like have I gotten there yet, but why isn't this enjoyable yet? Am I paying attention to, am I even acknowledging the gains that I'm getting? Is I think one of the ways guys skimp themselves from making it feel good, because they're like, oh, it's still, I'm not there yet, it's not done. It's like, okay, but you're actually working on it. That's the thing nobody does.
Yeah.
So why don't you like kind of land there and bring that in? And as far as my own experiments, yeah, it's like all the does, basically the movement, as far as what type or when or how or why, the sleep, food, how I balance my sort of like screen time or work time, deep work sessions, the time management kind of stuff. And yeah, I've kind of fucked around with all of it, and I think there's some stuff that I think has sleep was definitely one of the first things that stuck as the if there's one thing, truly, like one thing to keep sacred, one thing to like, I will fight you, I will fist fight you if you are trying to keep me up past my bedtime. That's like I make it a joke like that, so the mentality's there, but it's like it's funny. People call me when I'm hanging out with friends, if I'm like, someone asks like, oh, what time is it? And someone will say, oh, it's almost time for Nathaniel to turn into a pumpkin. Like, and then at first I was kind of like, oh, they're making fun of me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm actually I'm the best rested motherfucker here. Like make whatever jokes you want, but you guys are actually making a joke about the fact that I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, which is go to bed when you're tired.
What you want to do.
Exactly.
This is what I want, and you do it.
It's a want, but I actually love fighting for the supposed to essence too. And
Okay.
that's my own brand,
All right.
like I like
It
fighting
is.
for people to realize there's so many innate things to life
Yeah.
that are explicitly built to just fucking back you up and
Yeah.
make you feel great and have a great time. And we've built this culture that has become a literal antithesis to those things.
Well, I'll agree
Like
with
it's
that.
literally cool to stay up late. It's literally cool to eat some shitty stuff and whatever. Like the way that we binge and we cope and we, all this stuff. So I love being that. I love reminding everybody it's like 9 p.m. I'm like, all right, guys, I gotta go because it's time to go to bed. And sometimes I see people who are like, oh yeah, that would be nice. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just gonna go with the flow of what everyone else is doing. And so
I like that.
And so I'll kind of wrap my mastery piece too
Yeah,
with that, like the willingness to, if you're willing enough to engage in the experiment, you will find things worth fighting for, and you will find things that you become like healthily obsessed with and become these like your own freaking, I don't know, like infinity stones, like you only need like 5 on that gauntlet, right, to have the whole thing. And you really just like the sleep and the food and the time and the people and it's like there's only a few things. So to get obsessed with like, what is my version of that? Like, what is it really going to be for me? I don't need to be carnivore or vegan. I need to eat stuff and see what eating is like for me, right? I don't need to be a hustle person or a lazy person. I gotta like know what I want and figure out what actually gets me there and get honest about how good I am at that. Quick piggyback on one of the things you guys have brought up, like, oh, I keep saying this will take me 20 minutes, but it's taking me 40. You should always follow that up with, what could I do to get better at that? Right? Like that's always my favorite. So that's been my one other, I'd say, main experiment is actually learning to be able to trust myself and rely on myself. So when it's like, oh, I need to do this thing that I typically do for my business, I actually have done it enough now that I know it only takes 40 minutes, like literally, and sometimes a little quicker. So I can actually rely on that. And I can like schedule things based on knowing, oh, I got to make another presentation. Awesome. I know exactly what that process is going to be like. And there's something I think that is really significant to that, because so often people just feel like they're getting pulled around and just reacting to how things are showing up. But there's a few things that you actually can control. So maximizing that to whatever degree you can is that's the game. And we're
I
here to
think
win it, baby.
I think something that is just kind of dawning on me right now is this idea that like it can be fun to experiment with this stuff, because I think a lot of people, when you talk about, oh, having to get to bed at a certain time or whatever, it's like this, it's not the normal thing, because it's a lot of people don't necessarily, nobody's going to walk behind you and pat you on the back and be like, good job going to bed at 9:30. um they want you to
But you
stay out
should do
late.
that to yourself. You can
Well,
do
you
that to
should,
yourself. So
right, but that's what I'm saying. You can have fun with it, and it almost gets to become a game of like, how good can I feel at the end of the day? How many things am I able to check off on my list? So for me, it's like the gamification of it, and like the ability to have fun with how many times did I check in with my posture, and then the evidence of, oh, I checked in a bunch of times with my posture and I actually feel really fucking good right now.
Yeah.
How many times did I check in with my breath? Oh, and I actually feel really fucking good because I did those things. How many breaks did I give myself? How much did I accomplish today? Uh, yeah. So the idea of fun in there too is really cool.
Yeah, and it's a standard. You got to set that standard for yourself, you know, and it does take a little effort to like make it fun. It takes some mindset effort to like, you know, if it's like your first time ever playing basketball, it should be fun, but it might not be that fun because you suck at basketball. You know,
Right.
no one's gonna even pass you the ball. You're gonna, you know, travel a bunch, and so it's just like creating a healthy expectation for that. And then the last little piece on that is either way, it's going to be fun sometimes and painful sometimes, but it's the difference of it's like the pain. Either way, you're deciding the pain of becoming who you want to be or the pain of staying the same. They're both painful.
Yeah.
Right. And they're both fun. It's really fun to stay the same. Gets really familiar. Everything's really consistent and certain. All your suffering's really familiar and consistent and certain. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fun is just I'm grateful I never had to learn that part. I was just like, let's just be the best I could possibly be. And from a spiritual pursuit too, like Fabi said, that was like my first intro. It's like, oh, it seems like the point of life is to try to literally be the best version of myself. Sounds kind of fun. You know,
I can't not do it. I know plenty of people feel that way, and maybe some other people don't feel explicitly called that way, but I don't know. Once you try enough, it's like, well, this path is actually the more fun and better feeling path to strive for some sort of mastery, to be intentional and honest with myself in any way, whatever the hell I want to call it.
Yeah.
That, and I'm glad you said that, Adam, about having fun with it, because even as we're talking today, I'm thinking like, I've been a listener to podcasts that talk about this stuff, and I have often felt like, oh, now I have to go this, or I have to do that, or I've been lacking in this, or I'm not being as precise as this podcast host with that. And oh, this is just a lot of over biohacking, efficiency hacking, hustle culture guys. That we are not that. And I certainly am not. I work, I get shit done, but I am not hustle culture person. And I'll tell you, and
I would put the three of us up against any of those hustle culture. You could do a
we'll
team,
get it. We will
and
get
we
it
would get
done.
more done in
We
half
will
the
get it
time
done.
than those guys would
Yes.
in the whole
Yeah.
day.
And and I was gonna also say there is a fun place to practice this. And there is a place where if you're like, well, where do I begin experimenting on myself? Well, I think we all agree, well, sleep. But beyond sleep, where can I? There's a place to get guidance and feedback on that too. And it's our men's group.
Yeah.
Whoa, we have a men's group?
I'll just plug it before we head out of
Oh,
here.
that's great.
Like, if you don't know where to begin with this and you're curious, DM one of us. Come join Masterful Man for a month. Have a bunch of other dudes listen to you and say, hey, why don't you give this a shot? Do this experiment for the next week and then report back to us.
Yeah.
That is a fundamental piece of how our group works. So if you want, and then we'll pat you on the back. Oh, you optimized your sleep this week? Fuck yeah. So
And I know that
I'll
just
leave it there.
Yeah, a little note to that. It seems really odd to like check in with, like, we're all in our 30s, 40s. We have a lot of people that are older. We don't work with 13-year-olds, right? So it might seem weird to like report back like, "Hey guys, I got my 8 hours of sleep," or whatever. But it's like that's what the group is for, to like
Yeah.
champion you doing the does, like Nathaniel said. So just to kind of wrap this up, we try to give a challenge at the end of every episode, or a little piece of homework assignment. So we talked about a lot of different things. Try some of these things out. Sleep, time management, keeping a journal, finding some way to calm your nervous system on a daily basis so that you can be there and be aware of the things that you're doing. And then Nathaniel's the 3 C's, right? Capacity, connection, and clarity. Where do you need to get more clarity on what you want, your vision in your life, the things that you actually want to do, how you want to feel during the day? Who can you connect with more? Can you connect more with yourself, your inner drive, your vision, your why? And then the things that we talked about: time management, sleep, journaling, making sure that you're calm, cool, collected. they're good. We talk a lot about like, I think probably Fabi talks about it the most, is like just being good. And like, what does that mean? It's being like calm, cool, collected, ready to take on the challenges of what life is. So if you're at the beginning of your journey into all of this stuff right now, um, those things that I just mentioned are a good jumping off point for you. And then obviously, like Fabi said, if you want support in that, shoot us a DM, shoot us an email, something like that, and get involved in something like Masterful Man. Obviously, we would love to have you, but get involved in something that you can be held accountable for, at least at the beginning part of that, so that you can um, have somebody else take over for the willpower that you might not necessarily have right now. So if you're interested in that, masterfulman.com. We also have a 14-day, what I like to, in another podcast that I was on, I talked about how it's the 75 hard for self mastery for men, is this idea of um, the beast code. So if you want a little bit of a journal and kind of a little free 14-day course to kind of kick you off on all this stuff, it's at beastcode.com. The beast
The
code.
Beast Code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thebeastcode.com. And until next week, fucking love you guys. Thanks for all the great feedback. And yeah, join us in the men's group if that's what your heart desires.
Yeah, get your experiment going, get some support. And even if you don't have any clarity or capacity, you don't feel connected to anything, then you definitely should come in.
Absolutely.
But if you have all that stuff and you're going for it, you should probably come in too, so you can like keep it up. Either way, we're getting in there.
All right.
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
agree.
guys. Appreciate
See
you.
you guys later.
Bye.